will have an opportunity to take part in that debate as well. So with that, I will introduce our two moderators, Kiwana Walker and Martin Garcia. Let's give them a round of applause.
Do their best to make sure that all voices are heard, but we may move to different questions just for the sake of time, so don't feel offended. Remember, this is our debate, and we must make sure that it's good, so that we could have one in the future. And now let's recognize our debaters. Mohammed Al-Ghafari, Anaya Avant, Maya Biko, Jennifer Castillo Burgos, Enrique Hernandez, and Andrew Carreri. And Amina. So I hope you enjoyed this debate, and let's get started.
Okay. Our first question. It is well known that there are wealthier residents in the western portion of the county, especially Bethesda and Potomac, who often help infuse more money in their local schools through the PTSA and booster clubs than those on this side of the county. In light of such disparities, do you think DCC schools should get more money from the county?
Yes, DCC schools should get more money because our NEC schools, they have more money than what we have, and see in each school and NEC, they have a computer lab in each classroom, and here we only have like 4 computers per classroom, so of course we should get more money.
Well, I stand with Jennifer over here. So I say they should, get more money because of the achievement gap we have from different schools in Montgomery County. So if we look at it, it's been an issue for almost 20 years, same segregation and not getting enough money. You look at our schools, we go to meets, sport meets, or even athletic or academic meets, and we look at their schools and you can notice the difference. So why shouldn't we get more money than they do? I don't see the problem.
Issues with money are always big issues, and it all depends on where this money comes from. So if this money is coming from the federal government, then I absolutely say no, because when it comes with money going into stuff and the federal government has to pay for it, then typically taxes are going to have to be raised. But I believe that education should be dealt with on the state level, more specifically the county level, and dealt by a coalition of parents, students, teachers, and everyone of that nature. And to get more money, I just don't think that it should be a big federal government issue. Maybe fundraisers can be used, but I don't think that it's worth raising taxes or anything of the sort for this.
I think I agree more with what Mohammed had said earlier, that it's important for every school in the county to have similar or equal resources, and so the fact that we don't have these equal resources means that we should get more money in order to be on par with these other places. And he also mentioned that there is kind of a self-segregation within the county when we look at schools like the one that we go to compared to schools like Whitman or Wooten or other schools like that. You'll notice a difference in the population of students, and like the social economic status, things like that. So for the DCC area, it would be more beneficial to have money for these programs.
I went to Bethesda Chevy Chase High School for an event, and on their auditorium there's a little plaque that says that it was all paid for by a booster club. And their auditorium is gorgeous. And I was thinking that Kennedy doesn't really have a booster club. And so if we wanted a new auditorium, we don't have the money. Whereas all these schools who have more wealthy parents, more wealthy families, they're getting these really great facilities and athletic equipment that we can't afford because a lot of the families here can't afford to donate money to the school or to clubs, the booster club. And so I think the county should give us more money, but Andrew, it doesn't need to be increased taxing. The federal government wouldn't be relevant in this situation. It's a county issue, and it would be about redistributing the taxes, that you don't need as much to go to the really wealthy schools. You put more of it at Kennedy.
Okay, so I kind of agree with what Andrew is saying, and I also agree with what Maya is saying. But it also, I think we should focus on our school in particular, because we can't always say like, these schools have this, that school has that, but then we don't make the difference here. And I think that that stems from like the lack of support that we have a lot of the time. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Or pay the rents aren't working, but these families are working. They're just only being paid minimum wage, and that's not enough to afford rent anywhere or food or extra things. And so people should be paid a living wage if they can actually afford to pay rent and stuff.
We can't forget about the small business owners because it's difficult for them to make livings. Those entrepreneurs, they risk their financial security and everything to start a business, create jobs and everything of that nature. But if you increase the minimum wage, then they have to pay every single worker that amount. And if it's too high, then they're not going to want to pay that to a whole bunch of people. So they're going to have to make some cuts, and that's going to reduce the amount of jobs, which is not a good thing at all, because a few people might be well off in this, but quite a few people will lose their jobs because small business owners will not want to have to pay $15 an hour for every single one of their employees. It's just not reasonable at all.
I think just one thing to consider is that, like Ryan said, if people don't have enough money to buy like extra things, they just have the bare minimum to buy basic necessities, raising the minimum wage would give them more money to spend freely on things not like food and like paying your rent, which means like you would be able to have some more luxury items, which put more money into the economy, which stimulates the economy and helps things grow. So I think that, well, I understand what you mean, that some people might lose jobs, but there will also be more money being put back into the economy through people who have more money now.
There would be a surplus in jobs, actually. Sorry. There would be a surplus in jobs because it would create a larger motivation for those who previously thought that they didn't have the opportunity to get jobs. They would be able to go out and possibly get a higher paying job, which again would help the economy and us as a whole. And the economy is, small business owners are essential, but I think that the betterment of society as a whole is more important than a small business. If that makes sense.
Have a lot to deal with, and I don't understand how it's going to stimulate the economy, because the small business owners won't hire people once they reach a certain amount. They just, it's simple, they just won't hire any more people. And yeah, you could.
The minimum wage, if we raised it, what's the point of having jobs if they're not gonna pay these people enough to live? They're gonna have to afford housing, health care, education for the children. How are you supposed then to pay for all of this based on minimum wage? Most of them end up homeless on the streets, and you can't deny this phenomenon is rising. And you're talking about how is it that new businesses that are controlling our economy, or technically based on statistics, 80% of our businesses depend on large businesses, large corporations. So around 20% would be the small businesses, but we want the money from those big corporations.
Well, okay. I'm going to respond to two people. First, I'm going to respond to Amina, and then I'm going to respond to Mohammed. But so Amina was talking about the way you get disposable income is by cutting taxes, and that's the real way that we're going to get more disposable income for people. It's not going to be forcing the small business owners to not hire some people. It's going to be by cutting taxes. And then by what Mohammed was saying, he was talking about how he was talking. Wait, can you repeat what you were saying?
Okay, which part do you want?
The first part they said.
Oh, I asked you the question, what's the point of having jobs if they're not gonna pay enough for people?
Okay, so to answer that question, well, that's why people, they do a job for a long period of time, they get raises, they prove how good they are. That's how our society works. It's capitalism. It's simple capitalism. The harder you work, the more you get out of it, and the harder you work in your job, the higher your paycheck will be, and that's just the way it is. We can't slip into a socialistic society.
Would anyone like to share their opinion?
Inflation, we gotta take that into account. If we raise the minimum wage, the value of the dollar is gonna decrease, and like the price of other things are gonna increase because it's easier to get money. If you take the example of oil, for example, right now, we have a surplus of oil, and so the value of oil has decreased. And the same thing is gonna happen to the dollar if we make it easier for people to argue. Meaning if we raise the wage, the minimum wage, everything is going to get more expensive because of inflation. We're going to have more money, but the money is going to work. It's not going to be worth as much as it is worth now. So I think we got to take into consideration all the inflation factors. Because we can't just raise minimum wage and expect that the value of the dollar is going to be the same to that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's what we're saying.
What do they need to fix it more?
So that people can have more money. Well, it's more individualized, like people. So you're not really concentrating with minimal. Yeah, like the worker will get more money, and then that will help them because they will have more money to spend, and they can visualize a greater array of things.
I understand.
Before now you get 15, the government will take more out of your paycheck. Is that what you're saying? But you're still getting more money than you were before.
Yeah, you still get money, but
Yeah.
you're still spending more money. Like you spend.
But the amount of money that you're still retaining is a greater amount than you were getting before.
No, but it's good that minimum wage is raised because you have.
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah, okay, then we're on the same page. Okay.
Next question.
Okay, so free completely. Well, I think that if college is made free, then the value of education will lessen. And then universities and stuff won't have like the incentive that they had before. Like Ivy League colleges won't be like, okay, so professors would be kind of on par with like any other teacher in that sense because education will be free. So I think, as I said before, like 5 seconds ago, education, like the value will go down.
I don't think education has a monetary value. I think it has an intrinsic value, just being educated. So just because college is free doesn't mean that it will be worth less. It's still really important to get a college education. It's just that means that we won't be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt by the time we leave.
I agree with Maya that you really can't put a price on your education. It's a very valuable thing regardless. But with respect to free education, I think that that's not necessarily realistic. But to make education more affordable is what people really need. To a lot of people who really want to get a higher education don't have the means or the funds to do it. And so they have to take out loans, and like Maya said, you're in a bunch of debt once you get out of college, and nobody wants to be there. So then people choose not to go to college, and they do other things. So making college more affordable, I think, is a better goal. And also for people who, if you lower the cost of college in general, people won't need to take out as many loans, which is being given to them by the college itself, so the college has more money for itself.
Okay, the issue of free college is a very recent one in America. They have free college in several other countries in the world, but the thing is we have to think about the economy when it comes to America. And this is a part of Bernie Sanders' plan. That's why this whole issue came up in the first place. And the Wall Street Journal, a tally by the Wall Street Journal, puts the cost of his plan around $18 trillion worth of spending. Now, $18 trillion, that's a huge amount of money. He says that he's going to make the rich pay for it, but honestly, that's impossible. He wants to raise the taxes on the rich by an insane amount, so much so that they would probably just leave America instead of staying and getting destroyed. Because what's the point of staying when you're going to lose literally all of your money to the federal government? No one wants that. And if they leave and they're not going to pay for it, guess who's going to pay for it? The middle class and people in the lower class. So everyone is going to suffer from this, and it just really isn't a good idea. I agree with Anaya about what she was saying about how it's going to not make education, higher education, as prestigious and stuff. And the negatives far outweigh the positives, because if we think nearsighted like this, our entire economy will crumble. And making college free will destroy our economy in a decade's worth of time, because this $18 trillion plan in general is going to take about a decade. We're $19 trillion in debt, and we can't afford anything like this. It's impossible.
I really don't know where to start, Andrew, but okay. So I'm for colleges being free, public colleges for 2 years being free, and I think that's just a right for every student who's willing to go to college to get education, regardless of his family ability to provide tuition. You guys stated many things, like Anaya, she said that it will decrease the value of education. I don't believe that, because technically, I shared, probably if you asked me a week ago, I shared a conservative stand on this, and I didn't think it should be free, but I had this sociology teacher, and he told me something, probably just simple thing, but it really stood up to me, and he said, don't we all have a right to fail? So even if you're giving these people the money, or these students the money to go to college, giving them a new opportunity other than high school and the other 18 years you gave them, it's not your responsibility, it's there. You're giving them another chance, even if they take it and will fail. We're still gonna provide them with the opportunity to do that. And you're gonna, Andrew talked about the US economy and how this plan can't work. Technically, you're talking about one of the biggest economies in the world. Other countries in Europe are implementing such system, and they have free education for colleges, and they're stable economies, like France, Britain, other countries, Scandinavian countries, one of the best educational systems, like Finland and others. When we have the United States, one of the biggest economy, and you saying such a plan can't work, I don't really think this makes sense.
listen, we, out of every other country on the planet, we pay the most on education by far. And we're not even in the top 10 when it comes to how good our education is. We spend too much and we have little results. We don't need to spend more. What we need to do is fix our education system, make it local, and we spend too much already. I don't see why you would want to spend even more. Our economy is very big, but it got very big by being a capitalist country, not being a socialist country. The European nations have turned to socialism, and it's really not a good system at all. So.
Okay. So you've been attacking socialists and like specifically Bernie Sanders and his system. Technically, you're just throwing the word socialism when you're not showing the two different types of socialism. The first one is Karl Marx socialism, which he came up with, which ended like the Soviet Union or other countries implemented it, and they failed simply because they created dictatorship. The one Bernie Sanders is coming up is called democratic socialist. Other Scandinavian countries are using it to this day, and they have successful systems. So I don't see why are you attacking it since we started, and not realizing that it's democratic socialism that would not rebel the capital system that we have, but it will add to it.
Hello. Sorry for interrupting, but the bell for third period is going to ring, and if you're willing to go, then y'all can go now. But if you're willing to stay, y'all gonna be excused up to 10. Thank you.
This is not a question of preference, but of who do you think has a better chance at winning?
Who I think has a better chance of winning is either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, because they are both in the leads in the Democratic and Republican races. And they are both like 500 delegates that they need more to win to be nominated for the presidency. And they both have very strong stances on their issues. But see, the problem with Donald Trump is he's too out of control on his speeches, and if he does win, Congress will never approve of his idea of building a wall. And a lot of people support Hillary Clinton because she stands up for for women's rights, and that is a really good issue stance, and that's why a lot of people support her.
Well, I hope that Sanders would win, but I think that Hillary would be most likely to win if she went against Trump. And as President Obama said, I do believe in the American people, and they won't make such a mistake to let a guy like Trump, who had nothing to do with politics, to win such elections. So, yeah.
Would the audience like to share their opinion?
It's a very difficult thing to say at this moment of who the president is going to be. At this point in the Republican race, Donald Trump looks like he will be the nominee. But in the case of a contested convention, on the second ballot, we don't know who the Republican nominee could be. At this point, it could be Donald, Cruz, or Kasich. We don't know. Now, it's mathematically impossible for Cruz or Kasich to win at this point unless it's through a contested convention. But a lot of people think that Donald, if it goes to a contested convention and he doesn't win on the first ballot of a contested convention, he will not win the Republican nomination. However, if it's a head-to-head matchup between Donald and Hillary, it would be a very interesting thing to see because those two were pretty much best friends for a very long time. Like, Donald Trump just became a Republican a few years ago, and Um, she went to his wedding and everything. They were on really good terms, so it's going to be very interesting to see how it turns out. He said that he would campaign really hard in New York for the general election. It would be very interesting to see a Republican win New York, because if he were to win New York, then Hillary really wouldn't be able to win. Because if you think about the Democrat strategy, they win, what they do is win so they win New York and California, they're up by a lot. And then they need to win either Ohio or Florida, and then they can beat the Republicans. But if Donald takes New York, still wins the South, and everything, then he will become the president. So yeah, it's very interesting, and it's very difficult to see right now because we're still not even done with the primaries, and a lot of stuff can happen even on the Democrat side with the primaries because of the superdelegate system. Who knows, the Democrats might have a contested convention themselves if a lot of the superdelegates move to Bernie Sanders or something, and it's going to be very interesting.
I also agree that I think that it will most likely be a head-to-head battle between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and I think that Hillary Clinton would most likely win, while Donald Trump has a lot of support from a specific population of people. I think that Hillary Clinton probably has a more broad. I think that there are a lot of people who, like Andrew said, the Republicans aren't necessarily happy that Donald Trump would even be their nominee, which is why they might want a contested convention. And so I think that shows that the Republicans themselves aren't all gung-ho for Donald Trump and may cause them to either not vote or to switch sides. So I think Hillary has a better chance.
I think Donald Trump is going to win. I have no faith in the American people. I don't know how he's gotten this far, but he keeps winning states, and if he can win this many states and this many people come out to vote for him in all the primaries, he's getting people who've never voted before to vote for him, whereas people don't really like Hillary, and so maybe they would vote for her, but they're not going to be excited about it, and people who don't normally vote are probably not going to turn out to vote for her because she's not very likable. And so I think that Donald Trump will win.
Yeah. So Donald Trump. All right. So everything's basically been said, but with Donald Trump, I completely agree with Maya. Like, I do have faith in the American people, but I think that he definitely plays up fears, and that he makes it seem like he can get rid of all the imminent threats that could happen, and they're all very hypothetical. That didn't make any sense, but I don't know. I really don't know. And if it was between Hillary and Trump, wow. I know I'm not going to vote for him, and yeah, I can't vote.
Would anyone in the audience like to chip in?
So this would be a question for Maya. So I know you said you don't have faith in the American people, but don't you think if it was head-to-head between Donald and Hillary, that more people would come out to vote just so Donald Trump wouldn't become president?
No, I don't think so. I think that there are a lot of people who would come out specifically to make sure that Donald Trump becomes president, and then people that don't like Donald Trump don't really like Hillary either. I don't think that they're going to be enough excited about the election like they were when Barack Obama was running for president to turn out in the large numbers they did for him. And
Anyone else wants to share their opinion? Next question. Do you feel as though the DREAM Act, which gives immigrant students who grew up in the U.S. a chance to pursue higher education without fear of deportation, is a good policy, or does it simply encourage illegal immigration? Does the DREAM Act encourage illegal immigration? Act.
Okay. I don't think that it encourages illegal immigration. I think that the policies that we have in place now with regard to illegal immigration make it very difficult for, let's say you have a parent who's an illegal immigrant, but you were born in America. There's, like he said, the fear of deportation, which makes people not want to get caught, and then so they try not to pursue these things like higher education. But I think that the immigrants in America make up a large part of our society and our workforce and things like that. And so in order to give them an opportunity to have better jobs, you do need programs like this that allow them to get this higher education that they can then apply later on in their lives. And so I think that it's more for the people who are already here and less so for people who are trying to be here illegally.
Now, I'm a supporter of the DREAM Act, and I don't think it will encourage illegal immigration. And as everyone knows, everyone says the United States is a nation of immigrants. So I think that is a great step to help new immigrants to get their education and to involve them in our society.
Would anyone else share their opinion on this matter?
Next question. Does our current immigration policy make us more or less vulnerable to terrorist threats?
Okay. Our current immigration policy is not good. It's so subpar and it's just terrible. There are some parts of the southern border, like especially in Arizona, where there is no border. There's nothing. It's just land, and you can hardly tell which side is Mexico and which side is the U.S. And if radical terrorists were to go through Mexico and then go through the border with Arizona, there's not much that our current immigration policy will do to prevent any imminent threats, especially because the immigration guards over there, they're not even allowed to do anything. They're not allowed to stand up and like force them to not illegally immigrate, but we have a really bad immigration policy and things need to change with the next president.
I have to say that I think I disagree on that. I think that I had said this earlier, but the people that are immigrants and that come here are an essential part of what makes the United States like a melting pot, as we call it. And I think that to assume that every person who's an immigrant who comes here has bad intentions is a mistake, and not necessarily that that's what you're trying to say, but I think that to deny access or to kind of reinforce the policy and make it more strict would I think it would have a bad impact on the way that America is as it is now. And for people who have only the best intentions and want to come here to start a new life, they should be able to do that. I don't think it encourages terrorist attacks or what Martin has said.
I agree with Amina, and actually the greater threat of terrorism is from within the United States, and it's people who are U.S. citizens who are becoming radicalized, and that's the bigger threat, and people coming in from across the border is not really, I mean, that's a different problem, but it doesn't really have to do with the fear of terrorism that we have.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. How should local and state governments respond to police brutality against people of color? We would like to hear from Jennifer as well.
Can you repeat the question?
How should local and state governments respond to police brutality against people of color?
Local and state governments, they should have like background checks to make sure they're not racist against people of color, because that is still an issue, and it's not something to be proud of, because we established civil rights back in the 1960s, and we should still have them, and there's still people who are racist against people of color. And this nation is filled with diversity, and that shouldn't be allowed.
Okay, so this kind of ties into like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's going on with that. And actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but incarceration rates currently with African Americans in particular, there are 2.8 million African Americans that are currently incarcerated, and that just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So I think as a way to like prohibit young, sometimes old, like people of color from going into jail and such and being incarcerated is for police officers to wear some sort of camera. And I know that also brings up problems with funding, and that's also something that we need to look into. But I honestly think that it's worth it, because people are dying, and there's no excuse for that, none at all. And and I also think that we need to face the facts that everyone is racist. Everyone is racist. It could be subconscious, it could be completely conscious, but everyone is racist. And I don't know how we would give like an administered test to be like, to distinguish whether you're like a full-blown racist crazy or like someone who is not so much. But there was actually a study given at Harvard with police officers, and they had, so you guys know like in shooting ranges, there are like papers and people shoot at them, right? So they would randomly put pictures in front of police officers, and they varied from ethnicity. And it was like it was like 7 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, they would shoot at the African American people, and African American males specifically. And the pictures would depict the individual looking aggressive or not. So it's a huge problem, and it's a problem that's going to be debated forever, because it's a problem that will most likely last forever. So I don't know, I honestly don't know how to fix it, but it's something I feel very passionately about, and I think that it affects all of us today. So yeah.
Does someone from the audience have an opinion on police brutality?
I honestly don't believe that it'll last for a long time. I believe that it lasts right now because we still have parents and grandparents who have lived in that time of, still moving out of slavery and racialness, and they teach it to their children, and then their children look at them like, why can't I play with him, mommy? And then they don't tell them the right reasons, but they tell them that they're bad, stay away from them, and then that's what they're taught, and and then that's what the first thing that they're shown as they grown up, and they don't understand why, but their parents are the ones who implement them. But when you see little kids playing black, white, Asian, whatever, they don't care. As soon as their parents step in and say, don't play with them, they ask why, because they don't live in that time where, everything was bad.
So are you saying that like as the older generation kind of goes away and we start having children, then racism will go away?
Yeah, of course.
I don't necessarily agree with that. So there's internalized racism that's been around since forever, and people always have the inclination to have someone like an ideal beauty standard or something like that. And the ideal beauty standard so far has been someone from like European background. So and even today, like us as a population, we are racist. Like the whole light skin, dark skin, you're pretty for a black girl, blah 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 blah. That's something that's happening now. That's something that I see in this school. So I don't think that's necessarily ever going to go away because it's always going to be perpetualized.
Yeah, I agree that there are always going to be like, old people living in a new generation who will say something, and then they'll get that idea of it.
Right.
And there's always going to be people from the past generations who have lived through that, and they're going to pass on the word that what they believe.
But it's also on us, right? Because we are individuals, and we have our own ability to create our own opinions. So yes, we are influenced by our elders and stuff, but we can make the choice, and we can make the choice to move away from those ideals. And I'm not sure if that's happened yet. So
yeah, I feel like we're still transitioning, but there's a lot less racist people who come out about it because there's a majority of people who are open about it and don't feel racial about it.
yeah, well, what about Donald Trump? What about Donald Trump? He's crazy, man. He's crazy, and he's what? Can you repeat the last part of your question? I forgot it. I'm sorry.
I forgot it too.
Okay. Well, I said all that I can say. Okay.
I disagree with you because, and I agree with Amaya because actually it's not our parents who necessarily set our mindsets up when we're a child. It's more like society. Like in high school right now, we go through things that, like young men, like look at all the young African American men who had died by police brutality. For example, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, all these people, and it's like history is repeating itself. And I think it is going to continue because if it hasn't stopped since, 1964, what makes you think it's not going to stop until the future? So, yeah, I agree with you because, yeah, subject touches me.
Yeah. And also, like in media and stuff, we are constantly being thrown like ideas and ideals and like visual depictions of stereotypical like black people, and they almost always have a negative connotation accompanying them. So until the media stops portraying that, then we will continue thinking that way.
I agree and disagree with what you said and what you said. We are the media, if you get what I'm saying. People don't really talk about this, so that's another reason why it might not be going away, because people don't like to talk about it. If you talk about it more, people are less ignorant, people have more knowledge about this, and, sorry. I believe that it can eventually go away, but there is a lot of negativity on this topic, but there are also people that really do believe that we can change this, and
again, I'm repeating myself, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
I think it can eventually go away, but like I was saying, people need to talk more about it. People need to really know the history, not just African Americans themselves, but like people like myself.
Right, we need to include other
Yes.
races in the conversation.
Yes.
Right.
So I guess that's all.
Well said.
Basically, I don't think that's the case, but there are a bunch of things we have to deal with, not only with racism, but also classism, like you said, with colorism. So, plus media as a whole, media is bad, but the thing about media is they only sell things that, like they show the negative things, but that's what sells, because people, like the bad almost outweighs the good in a sense. And as far as the whole thing, like we as people need to change our perspectives on every single thing and hear people out and not so much focus on media, because media will always warp our brains and have us believing in one thing and not actually thinking for ourselves.
And our last question. If there was one thing about Kennedy that you could change, what would it be and why?
I think for myself personally, I didn't go to Kennedy my first year. I went to Rich Montgomery and I transferred here for a sophomore. Yeah. Oh, and I transferred in my sophomore year, and I enjoyed my experiences here much more than I did there. But one thing I think I would change is I think there's kind of a lack of motivation within students to really kind of push themselves to do things on their own. I think not that there's anything wrong with working with your peers and things like that, but I think that people kind of settle for the bare minimum, which is not really going to get you very far once you're on your own, and you can't settle for the bare minimum unless you want to live with the bare minimum. So I think that more intrinsic motivation is something that would help the school.
Okay, I love Kennedy, I love the school, I love the people. But I guess I'm just going to add on to Amina's point that I don't understand why more than 140, more than almost like 30% or more of the senior class has a 1.9 and below. And why there are so many kids at this school who are not trying. This is your one chance at a free education, and there are people here who want to help, and I think that we need to have an environment in Kennedy where people encourage each other and where it's really cool to be the best in your class and to have 4.0s all the time and to challenge yourself and to think critically and to have intellectual conversations. And that should be something that's more common here at Kennedy, and that it shouldn't be normal to just take the L all the time. Like we shouldn't go into class thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna fail this and I'm not even gonna try. We should all actually try. I don't even think that should be part of our vocabulary. Like no one should come in here saying I'm just gonna take that L ever. That shouldn't be a part of Kennedy.
Would somebody from the audience like to share? What do you guys think about the 50% rule?
So the 50% rule doesn't really let us, focus on what is expected of us. And the 50% rule means that we only have to write our name on our paper to get 50%, which giving us credit for only writing our names. And that's not gonna work in life. That's laziness. And we should be driving for more more than 50%, like a 70 or an 80. And 50%, that will, like, if you keep getting that constantly, that will get you at least a D. And that's passing the class without even doing anything, so.
I agree with the 50% rule because it's up to the teacher if they give you 50%. Because I recently just went through something with my English teacher. She didn't give me 50%. It's up to the teacher. They decide whether they give you 50% or not, and whether you earned it or not. 50% helps a lot of students, whether, like, say you slipped up one day on something and you didn't read, or you didn't study for a test, and it helps you because you tried. They also have the opportunity to retake an exam. I agree with Maya when she says that people should have higher grades because the 50% rule does help you increase your grades. People should have like higher than a C average or anything. Like there should be no excuse for E's or B's. If you're seeking help, there's so many people at Kennedy that offer you help, and if you just ask someone, there's so many adults that will offer you. They pay for things for you. Like they have prep classes for you for SAT. Like there's no excuse for you to have poor grades because if there's a teacher, like you have counselors, you have administrators, like you can go to someone and talk to someone being unfair. So really, I agree with Maya, like you should just try your hardest and seek help if you need it. Like that's what teachers are here for.
I agree with her that the 50% rule should be in because 50% is still failing. So if you don't do it and there was no 50%, you get an E. If you do try, just put your name on it, you still get an E. I know like cumulatively, if you keep getting 50s versus a 0, your grade will go up. But if you always get 50s, you still get an E and you fail. On the report card, it doesn't show a percentage, it shows a grade. 0, E, 50, E. So if you don't do the work, you're gonna get E.
Wait, hold on, can I respond? If you get a 50% on all of your assignments, other than your homework, and then you get 100% on your homework, then you're going to pass the class with the 60%. So you could literally not try hard at school and then do all of your homework and still get a 60% and pass. So
Okay, so I highly disagree with the 50% rule because it does not mean that you tried. It really doesn't. It just means the teacher gave it to you. And like Maya said, everybody should be trying. And the 50% rule allows you to have no type of determination to get good grades. All you have to do is put your name on the paper and turn it in. And if the teacher does want to give you 50%, well, kudos, whatever, good luck to you. But it doesn't mean you tried. It really doesn't. Like, people in the school, some people, they bust their butts to get good grades. And just because, like, it's not fair for you to get a 50% just because your teacher allows you to. You should try it like everybody else does. And it really, it's just laziness. That's what it is. It's laziness. That's all.
Right.
I also agree with Caleb because your parents do not look at your report card and do not see a percent nowhere. So I just want to say that.
Andrew, so what's a passing grade for you? Tell me.
well, according to the county standard, the passing grade is a D.
Well, if I was MCPS, I would take that out for because D is not a passing grade. Like, I don't know if maybe it's like how I've been raised. Like, I would never be happy of getting a D. I see some students over here, I'm like, what's your report card? They be like 1.8, 1.9, I don't know. I'm like, what? When they tell me that, you don't understand how I feel inside. Like, it's just stupid. Like, the students are not stupid. It's just what they do is stupid. You shouldn't be happy of getting a D or a C. the lowest you should get is a D. In my standard, that's me. But like, yeah.
I believe that the 50% rule is actually setting us up for failure, because for college and the real world, you're not going to have a 50% rule. If you do something bad and in your job, they're not going to be like, pat on the back, sure, half of the stuff you did, it's okay. No, if you only do half or whatever, and you don't finish in the real world, you're going to be fired from your job, you're going to have no job, so you should, it's really setting us up for failure right now. Right now you should focus on doing your work by the due date, not the deadline. And make sure that you work well in school, make sure that you'll be able to be prepared for the real world, because this is not the real world.
I agree with Andrew because we're setting up our students for failure. And I believe that there's no 50% rule in college. So it's either you fail or you pass. So now to finish, we will hear from Judy. We're running out of time.
Even though the debate is over, you can still discuss about this. Just let you know. Okay, so we hope everyone enjoyed our student debate today. We would like to thank the audience for your participation and cooperation. And on behalf of the Minority Scholars Program, SGA, and the Social Studies Department, we would like to thank our debaters today, Anaya, Maya, Amina, Andrew, Mohammed, and Jennifer. We would also like to thank our moderators, Martin Garcia and Kiana Walker. Finally, we would like to thank all of those who helped out behind the scenes to make this event a success. Please make sure that you return to your third period class. No skipping, you know. Tracy? I don't know which camera are we looking at? No, right. Yeah. Where are we looking?
Don't worry.
Look at me. Okay, we're good. We can't. Now look at me. 1, 2, 3.